the main things that you really need for flow are three things. You need clear goals, okay? I do the thumbs up as like, yes, you've accomplished it. You know where the measured line is for success in that thing. Number two is the challenge to skills ratio needs to be adequate. So I'm now making an L or an XY graph with my finger, and you need to have enough engagement and enough stimuli so that way you're not bored, and it needs to have enough of a challenge so that way you're engaged with it. You're not gonna snap, but you might be bending a little bit. Right? But after that, you
Hey, welcome back to Master Keys of Life. This is where we talk with people who have used different master keys in their lives to find out what it is that they were supposed to do. Who are they supposed to be? What are they supposed to accomplish? What are the things inside them that they want to bring out and become who they're supposed to be? Because we all have a part to play in this planet. And especially if you're a part of God's kingdom, it's definitely very, very special, very specific. So my guest today is a really good friend of mine, and he's one of those 10 talent guys. He can do music. He's brilliant, writer and TV personality, all of these different things rolled up into one. And this is Carl Wallnau. He's just a wonderful friend of mine, and we've been hanging out together for, my gosh, almost 2 years now, I think. Pretty close. Anyway, so Carl, what I want you to do is I'm going to just let you take off for a few minutes and just talk about your life. How what's going on? Who are you? Because a lot of people, this is the first time they've met you, and so I'll just let you go for it. Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you, Bill. I prefer to call you Dr. Greenman, but
it's fine. Whatever.
You've asked for that friendly, familial level, so
exactly.
I've known about you through my father and his line of work. You were the guy who turned my dad on to the idea and the concept of purpose and people really finding what they're built and meant to do. So fortunately, I've been in some way, shape, or form around that environment and that thought process my entire life, with my dad being a practitioner of helping people find their identities and level up, themselves along the way. So personal development is a really big deal. But hey, everybody, sorry, little side tangent there. I'm Carl. It's an honor to be able to chat with you guys. As Bill very nicely put, with a great introduction. Thank you for that.
Of course.
I am an author, but I'm also a creative in multiple different avenues and different ways. And I'm really into personal development. I'm a flow coach as well. I studied at the Flow Research Collective online, which was founded by Stephen Kotler. And it's an amazing thing to be able to pursue something that for you has both intrinsic and extrinsic value and meaning associated with it. So I personally believe that I am here for artists, for other creatives. And what I want to do ultimately is to help broaden their creative horizons while expediting their success in those respective fields. And the way that I do that is by trying to help equip them with the tips, tools, tactics, and techniques that will help them develop their skill set, kind of act like a utility belt. You guys might, if you're viewing it, I'm wearing a Batman shirt. I love Batman. I love comics. The stuff behind me is, I work in a comic shop right now. And that was actually at the behest of Dr. Daniel Amen, who I consider to be a mentor of mine. I don't know him personally. I've never actually shook his hand, but it's totally fine. You can still have mentors that you've never personally met and still benefit from their knowledge. So he has a book that's called You Happier. And one of his tactics that he recommends is just put yourself around an environment that you naturally are happy in. And because I love comics, I love story. Also, as Bill mentioned, I'm an author. Shameless plug.
Absolutely, show it.
Coffee with Immortals, available online and also, there we go. Coffee.
There you go.
Yeah, by JJ Patty. I helped co-author this with my friend, but it's also available at the comic shop that I work at right now. And so Daniel Amen recommends putting yourself in an environment where you're more likely and more prone to be happy. So that's one of the practical things that I've taken from somebody who I consider to be a mentor, even though I haven't actually met them, that I started applying in my life. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch to talk about and all that. But one of the main things that I was hoping for with this conversation is to really focus and hone in on the idea of flow, where it actually is a state of mind. It's been studied, it's been quantified, and there are certain phases and stages to enter into flow. And I think creatives have, and when I say creatives, I mean writers, I mean authors, I mean orators,
Sure.
Anybody who creates anything, inventors, anybody who can pursue that type of creativity and that curiosity, they're able to tap into flow in a slightly different way, because for them it might be a little bit more mental as opposed to physical. But also sometimes when you're playing music, for instance, it's more physical.
Exactly.
So
Let me step in a second here.
Yeah, please.
So when you say flow, my generation, we just said you're in the zone.
Yeah.
Right? You're just in that zone. Everything disappears except what you're concentrating on. Right. And as an athlete, you can tell there's just times when you step into it, it's absolutely effortless. You don't even have to think about it. So just in case of some of you out there going, flow, what's that? So that's all he's talking about. It's being in that zone. But I want you to take as much time as you want on that, because it's such a really, really good subject.
Yeah. Well, I'm of the opinion of the mind that when you are prone to enter into the zone or get into that headspace, it's a solid indicator that you are doing something that is purposeful, that is intrinsically and extrinsically valuable to you, as well as to your community, to the greater you that you are a part of. Awesome. So that's something really that I wanted to kind of focus on. I don't know if we're going to address it or if this will be edited out, but this is like kind of take 2 for our conversation being recorded. And last time it was a bit of a smattering, which was really fun. But I was like, I kind of want to be a little bit more focused and intentional on
That's good, yeah.
As it relates to purpose specifically. So with flow, when you enter into that zone, there are certain things that kind of need to be there. And I mentioned earlier, it happens in 4 phases or stages. And the first one is struggle. You always have to struggle to enter into flow. Right. There are certain people who are like, oh, I'm in flow 24/7. And the joke that Kotler says is like, we have a term for that. It's called manic. And it's a health, like you might want to get that looked at.
Exactly.
That's not to be negative. That's just to say, again, it's been kind of quantified. And some people are more prone to enter into that, or their struggle phase is a little bit less, because they might have certain frameworks that work for them.
Of course. The athlete's the practice. I mean, you're practicing all the time, so you have all of that, the pain and everything that goes with that. So whether it's physical or mental or whatever, go ahead.
After the struggle phase, which can last a different amount for different people, the baseline usually is about 15 to 20 minutes and it doesn't have to be intense struggle where you are like sweating every single thing that you're doing, but it is an active engagement, like Bill was talking about with doing the exercises for the athlete, actually going out and doing the rudiments, or like playing the scales on the guitar, on the piano, what have you. That's part of the struggle phase, is actually engaging with that. And then after that, you need release. Release means that you're stepping away from the project. It might be a mental checkout. Some people recommend a release of just looking at a blank wall and kind of letting your mind reset. But with that struggle phase, you're building up the adequate neurochemistry to actually make the chemical cocktail for flow.
Right.
And after the release, go back into the work. Again, you need to struggle a little bit. You need to re-engage with whatever that thing was that you were leaving on. And that's when you can actually tap into the zone. And flow needs certain things for it, but the main things that you really need for flow are 3 things. So for those of you who are just listening, I'm holding up my thumb, my index finger, and my middle finger. You need clear goals, okay? I do the thumbs up as like, yes, you've accomplished it. You know where the measured line is for success in that thing. You know whether you've accomplished it or not. And so a lot of times the clear goals means it's a SMART goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant to your other goals, and it is time specific. So clear, specific goals. Number 2 is the challenge to skills ratio needs to be adequate. So I'm now making an L or an XY graph with my finger, and you need to have enough engagement and enough stimuli so that way you're not bored. And it needs to have enough of a challenge so that way you're engage with it. You're not gonna snap, but you might be bending a little bit.
Right.
And the higher the challenge, the more skills that it's using, ideally, and that's going to create a channel, a flow channel for you.
Right.
So, for instance, if you're really bored, add a little challenge to whatever the boredom is. Maybe add a point system, so that way you're a little bit more engaged. Or if something is a little too hard for you, or it seems like it's overwhelming, maybe you can break it down into smaller brackets that are a little bit more bite-sized. So that way you don't feel that sense of anxiety or overwhelm.
Right.
And you're also not apathetic to it. And then after the flow channel, which hopefully is a great experience, and sometimes it might not feel like the best thing ever, right? But it, in retrospect, will let you know that you were more productive in that time than you would have been otherwise.
Right.
But after that, you need recovery. And a lot of people are racing towards burnout because they don't adequately recover. And so there's different tactics for that. There's passive recovery, active recovery. We don't have to get in all the weeds on that. But basically, for yourself, you need to recognize, do you do better with cold or warm recovery? Do you do better with active recovery in the sense of like physically actually taking a walk after your flow experience to kind of decompress? Or do you need an isolation chamber or a sensory deprivation chamber? That type of thing. Red light. I know it's just good across the board. Sauna. Some people really like sauna.
Sure. Yeah. Let me step in a second. So, because I can so relate to what you're saying. I never thought of it in these steps, but it's so good. So when I was doing circus, and I did a lot of different things in circus. So some of it, if I'm juggling with somebody, that's not a high stress environment, but it is a high challenge environment. Because you've got two guys, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth, right? And it's very mental. But when I'm doing trapeze, when I'm catching somebody who's, coming at me at 150 miles an hour out of a double somersault, I have a stress. I have the physical. I have to care for that person. There's a lot of factors. So when you're done, depending on what you're doing, how you recover, and you have to. I mean, one of the things, for a high level athlete is you have to take time off. But usually when they take time off, it isn't rest. It's, I've got to do something else that has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But it's still physical, because we're such physical beings when you're in that state of professionalism with your physical body. And I know it's the same whether if you're a musician, if you're a writer, it doesn't really matter. But for me, I'm so relating to what you're saying because I was a pro athlete and because I still am an athlete. It's you do have to have that recovery. Now we talk about recovery where there's the physical body has to actually recover from that exercise, but there's the whole being recovery. So I just really appreciate the way you stated all that. So I'll let you keep going.
Thanks. From the biblical side, even God took a day off. So
very good.
For what it's worth there, take a Sabbath. So I know this is Master Keys and flow is a really big thing. But I also do want to, if you're cool, to like pivot slightly onto maybe leadership and setting
goals. Ahead. Yes.
So I certified through DISC or certified in DISC through Wiley. Shout out to Wiley. They're great. And understanding the personalities really helped me understand kind of why I had certain issues with certain other leaders in my own life growing up. I wasn't necessarily, I joke around that I'm an oddball, ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, because I tend not to like get along with the leaders in my life. But part of that is because I have high D temperament. Yes. And so I'm fast paced and I'm task oriented. And if I know what the parameters are of a thing, one, I like to think outside of those parameters. And I like to think outside of the box. So I want to know what the box is before I can think outside of it. But two, I want to be effective and efficient in getting things done.
Yes.
And so a lot of what I do now with like, I'm a stagehand at Tannehill's, but it's a lot of hurry up and wait. And my mom reminded me on the phone recently. She's like, "Babe, that's showbiz. Like, you want to do that. Like,
exactly.
That's exactly what that is." And I was like, "Thank you for the reminder. Like, I'm doing what I want to do." But going back to the D temperament style and leadership, there are certain people who are more influence oriented as leaders, and those tend to be more the I style. There are people who are communal leaders. You see a lot of these who start out as like grassroots politicians or community organizers. That's the preferred term.
Yes, there you go.
Those people are very much S temperament style leaders. And then you can see well, Steve Jobs definitely is a D style, but also C, very structured, very
Yes, he
regimented,
was. Yes.
very specific, very
Mhm.
anal retentive in that way. And so understanding the different styles helps understand the different leadership patterns. But pretty much all leadership and the work of leaders falls down into three main things, which is crafting a vision,
Mhm.
building and bolstering alignment around that vision,
Mhm.
and then championing execution, basically,
Yes.
and making sure that you're following through on that.
Yeah.
So with the current state of the world, I see a lack of really strong leadership that is
Mhm.
able to do all three of those things.
Mm.
And that's also something that I was hoping we could maybe have a conversation about for what master keys you think are missing societally and communally that need to be refined or harvested a little bit more.
Sure, sure. That's a great, great question. So, and for those of you who don't know what DISC is, he just explained all four of those letters, DICS, SC. And it is one of the best personality. It's a little bit more than just personality. It's your communication style. There's so much more to it. Your temperament, all of that. But it's so good, so accurate. You can find it online. Do you have a link? Do you have to where you would just that you just
Yeah,
mentioned specific place?
yeah,
What I'm just saying, I can put it, if you can say it now, but I'll also put it at the end of the video.
yeah. We go through Epic. That's who our like provider is for the template
Okay.
stuff. But I believe if you just email Carl@lancewallnow.com if you're interested, we can walk you through that. No problem.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. And that is that will be on at the end. And for those of you just listening on, just listening to the audio of this, that's fine. So it's we'll give that again before we stop. So, as far as purpose goes and the master keys, you mentioned three of them right there for sure. Without a vision, you perish. You don't have, you're absolutely aimless. You're a pinball. I always equate it to a horse out on the plains, man. They're beautiful. They're powerful. They're going nowhere, doing nothing. Right. And they're doing nothing. Right. But they're beautiful.
Oh,
Right.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah. But a horse, they take that same horse and you train that horse. And I'm not talking about breaking, I'm talking about training the horse.
Mhm.
And you put a bit in its mouth and you can direct that power to accomplish things, whether they're a race horse, whether they're, a huge horse who's going to pull a plow, or, whatever it might be, doesn't matter. You can direct all that energy. That's what a vision does for you. It gives you direction. I would say inspired, educated, activated, right? Something's got to inspire you. You got to have a vision. You got to have something that you see that you want to go after. You've got to be educated. How do I get there? How do I do any of that? Right. And then the third thing is, if I never act on it, nothing happens. And that's where so many people fall down. And I'm glad you brought it up as well. They fall down because they don't act. They'll plan. But they don't act. They don't ever do anything. And you're just like that horse. You think you're doing something out on the plain. You're running around. You look great, but what's happening? What's being accomplished? Those are my three big ones right there.
Mhm.
There's many, many more, but I'd be interested to hear, if you've got any others that you're thinking of.
No, I really like all of those. And one thing that is really cool about having something like a dream journal or a vision board is that you experience something that's referred to as the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also known as like Shark Week. Or I say that because the example used online in one of the specific examples was like, when you start hearing about Shark Week, and it's like, oh yeah, it's Shark Week. But Shark Week is that week every year, so you knew about it, but because it's being more obvious to you and you start to see it, but it's frequency illusion.
Yeah.
So here's another example of like a dream journal. And I'm not going to walk through the whole thing, but this is one of mine. And so it has a bunch of different like symbols on it, and because it's censored, it looks bad, but it's not. It's not inappropriate at all.
Yeah, just hold it right in front of your chest. Bring it right down. There you go.
There we go. Nice. So yeah, it has a bunch of different characters and symbols, and inside there's a bunch of pictures and things that I find personally really inspiring or motivating, or that can draw me into the future that, to use some of my father's terminology, the future that I want to make manifest.
Yeah.
The thing that I actually want to have happen in my own life. And the more that I expose myself to that, my brain constantly looking for patterns and recognizing patterns is going to pull those things out of different areas to alert me to the fact that I'm in proximity to something that might make me more in line, might make the brain more in line with that type of thing to happen more.
Right. No, that's great.
So having an adequate vision that you can return to, that's in a way plain as day for you, is a great way to, as you said, kind of redirect some of that horsepower.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things we've all experienced this, your reticular activating, it's that part of the brain that, when you go, okay, I want a blue Volkswagen, you start seeing blue Volkswagens everywhere. They've always been there. But that sense in your brain, it starts picking it up. You just see it more because you've activated your brain saying, I want that, or you concentrate on that. You're looking at specific blue Volkswagens all the time online or something. Then you start seeing them everywhere. Okay. That is a huge key. It's kind of what you're just talking about. When you have a full understanding of what it is that you want, and you can see it, because we're picture oriented beings. We see, we picture it. The whole universe was created out of God's imagination. So everything that was visible was made for something invisible. Okay, how did that happen? Because he saw it first on the inside, and then he said, okay, create this stuff. And he's got a wild imagination. And people who there's Christians who are afraid of their imagination. But that's one of the greatest God parts of you there is that ability, like you were just saying, you're seeing this, you're creating that. I love that book that you make with all the stickers on it. I remember I've had a couple of those in my life, and I've got a vision board right over here that is this is about 3 feet by 2 feet, and it's just full, right? So keeping those pictures in front of you, keeping that vision before your eyes at all times, that is really, really important, and it's a great thing. It is a great thing because you can check stuff off, right? You go, okay, well, I did that one, because I got a lot of them on my board over here that I've checked off, right? And what we're doing right now, these podcasts, I saw 2 years ago doing these, right? And I've got a list of them here of the people, you were on it, and I'm just going down my list, but I keep it in front of me because I know the more I look at it, the more it's gonna manifest. Yeah, because I see it more, I move toward it more. So, okay, great. All right, I want to ask you a question here. Yeah. What is, based on everything you've said, what's a project that you're working on right now? What is the thing that really is stimulating your everything about your mind and your will, your emotions, all of that?
I don't think I have one that's doing all of them at the same time, but I also feel like I'm in a season of sowing seeds and
that's awesome.
A bit of toil, if that makes sense.
That's awesome.
What is it? Plan to work and then work the plan. That kind of thing. So one project that I am really stoked on is Pure Music, puremusic.org. If you guys want to check it out, you actually introduced me to this amazing group of people who are working towards helping equip the next generation of artists with the insider industry knowledge of what it takes to make a hit song, of what it takes to get something produced, of what goes into tour management. And we want to, create master classes with masterful artists who are just phenomenal in their field, who have a unique expressed vision that they've been able to execute, and, have them teach you how they did it. So we're working on that. We still need funding, but we've started working on a radio show where I get to interview artists about their passion, about their craft, about their experience. And even just yesterday, I was supposed to have an hour-long conversation with this amazing artist named Gabrielle. And she was like, actually, just so you know, I have some extra time. So it turned into a 2-hour-long conversation. Yeah. And it was remarkable. And it's going to be a great show. I still have to do the edits on it. So that's, again, part of the work, part of the struggle phase that I get to look forward to.
The struggle, yeah.
But that is something that I'm really stoked on. And I do appreciate you letting me know, or letting me plug that.
Absolutely.
I also mentioned earlier Coffee with Immortals.
Yes, I love that title, Coffee with Immortals. It's so good.
Thank you. It was almost all Judah, my writing partner, and his wife, Carolina, but mainly him. He was a a DM or a GM, a game master for a D&D campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And after the story was over, the quest was over, the campaign was over, he felt like there was still more to the story. So he got permission from all the players, which is also, I think, a personal key. Make sure that you get permission before you use
Absolutely right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Also, pro move, get it in writing, but that's
Mm-hmm.
another lesson for another day. He wrote this story. It took him really like 3 or so years, and he didn't quite have the end of it done. He couldn't quite push it over the finish line.
Sure.
So a mutual friend reintroduced us. We had known each other years past, but only acquaintances, and was like, hey, I think Carl might be a good idea for this project. So he brought me on board last year, and we were able to knock it out of the park. What was a few hundred pages is now like 600 pages.
That is a thick book, brother.
It's a thick one. It's a thick one.
Yeah.
It could have been a part 1 and 2, but it's okay.
Okay.
Well, that also kind of spits in the face of one of those sayings for authors that you never finish your first book.
Yeah.
And so for Judah, this was his first book. And I don't think he would mind me saying or letting people know he's dyslexic. So like he does mostly talk to text or voice memos to convert. So when I first came on, we'll say I'm a grammar gremlin.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. So that was a difficult, fun challenge for me. But also, again, part of the struggle phase was like, dude, this thing looks like it was not well written. And that's just grammar stuff. Like he is a great writer. He really does have great ideas and all that. And that's just it's a medium kind of issue.
Yeah.
So if you guys are interested in any of that, it's available on Substack. It's available on Royal Road, or if you want to actually buy a copy, it's available on Amazon. The title is Coffee with Immortals by J.J. Pattee, Pattee. And I do get a recognition on the first page, as well as his wife saying, co-authored, but I didn't get on the outside. That's a contract thing, which I didn't go over, so that's on me.
It's okay. Yeah. Writing books, people, if you've never written a book, I remember the first time when I wrote it, I'd never written a book. I didn't know anything about it. So what did I have to do? I had to go study to find out, how do you write a book? Then I had to say, okay, how do you get a publisher to publish your book? Because back then, this is back in the 80s. Where wasn't much happening as far as self-publishing. You didn't have Kindle, you didn't have Amazon. It just wasn't there. You published it. You got a publisher, or if you had a local printer who might be able to do a book, you could do that, but pretty slim.
Yeah.
And so you study that, and where I'm going with this is you do what you have to do to make that goal happen. So your friend, okay, I'm not great writing because I'm dyslexic, but I can talk and I can let my voice create, and then I have to hand it to somebody else to take care of all the grammar and all of, whatever. Well, any author usually does that. In fact, you want to do that. You want to hand it to some editor because you just can't see it. You've done it. You've read it too many times. So what I'm getting at here, guys, is I don't care what your vision is. I don't care what your purpose is. You will never, ever be able to do it by yourself. Absolutely impossible. You will need people because you have some gifts, but you don't have them all, right? You have some skills, but you don't have them all. And you're going to have to find people who do. And that's what I love about what you just were talking about with the book, Carl, is that, okay, you came in and as you said, the grammar gremlin, but that's exactly what an author needs.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, if you're writing something and you're afraid to give it to somebody else, what they might mess with it, messing with your grammar is one thing. With your content's a totally different thing. Nobody messes with my content. I don't give that to anybody.
Yeah.
Right. But you want to make it sound better, flow better for the reader. Awesome. So that's a great example. And no matter what your purpose is, you're going to have to do something like that.
Yeah, even just to piggyback on that idea, like if you really want to birth something, you can't asexually reproduce. If you're a man, you need a female, and if you're a female, you need a male in order to have that go. I'm not trying to be controversial here. I'm not trying to be just for the biological, practical side of it. And Judah was very kind and very generous as a creative to bring me in and let me share some of my ideas. And so there are little elements in the book that are definitely a whole lot of Carl, but the main thing for him was getting it out there. And for me, that resonates with my purpose of partnering with creatives to make their dreams more achievable, or at least seemingly more achievable in their eyes, because I think it is achievable. if we work together to get there.
100%.
And okay, let me finish the actual thought.
Yes, go ahead.
You had said, like, what's something that's really captured my mind, will, and emotions as it pertains to that. So after we got this thing self-published through Amazon and all that, thank you, Amazon, I actually was able to get it into the comic shop that I work at. And
awesome.
so now it's on the bookshelves, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
And on Thursday, I'm going to be taking over the airwaves after everybody leaves. I'm going to be playing some of my band's music in the comic shop while my books are on the shelf. And that's like such a weird niche thing that 13, 14-year-old Carl would be so stoked on.
Oh, absolutely.
Where it's like, it only took me 20 plus years to get here, but
of course,
you know, every overnight success takes 15 years.
That's right. You're a 20-year overnight success. That's usual. Man.
Hey, we made it.
Exactly. Hey, I want you to talk about your music. Talk about your band.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry. Just saying, like, that's another thing that's a unique, unexpected challenge is once we actually finish the project is getting people interested in the project. That's a whole other can of worms that comes with, in my opinion, the purpose that I wasn't aware of, but it is another facet that needs to be explored. So for what it's worth, going back to the flow and purpose, you might not always find flow in every facet of your purpose, but it will lend itself towards at least the struggle phase for you to enter into the flow phase.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to step in just for a second, but I do want you to talk about your music.
Yeah.
So one of the things that a lot of people miss about their purpose is there's marketing involved. And I'm not talking about you necessarily to do ads on Facebook. That's not what I'm talking about. But marketing is important. I go back to God and Jesus. How did they market? Right? Miracles, signs, wonders, burning bushes, rocks giving out water and honey, and I mean, on and on. The Red Sea splits in half. I mean, that's marketing, right? I mean, that's incredible marketing. Jesus, heals the sick and raises the dead, casts out demons, and he sent his disciples 2 by 2 to every place he was going to go to do what? The same thing he was already doing, saying, hey, the guy who taught us how to do this, he's coming behind us. That's marketing. Okay. You getting in front of people. If you believe you have a vision, and I love that you did this with, got your book, you've got, you're getting on the airwaves, and you're going to have your music there. I mean, that's the marketing step. That's getting it in front of people. You have to do that. Figure out, there's some things that's difficult to market. I mean, it just is, but you still have to do that. And here's the thing is if it's about you, that's wrong. But what you said, you were talking about how many people can you help? How can I help this guy get this book out there?
Right.
Okay. If that's your heart, then you are doing the people you want to help a disservice by not marketing what you have. Right? You have to market who you are, what you are in some way. You have to let people know that you're there. Right now, I'm calling the largest, the people who have the largest youth organizations in the world. Right? I'm talking to the leaders. They're my clients now. The leaders of the largest organizations in the media and all of these things, because they're going to reach the people I would never reach. But that's my marketing campaign, is to go to the leaders and say, let's collaborate. I'm meeting with a man this week who is, one of the, one of the largest, he has one of the largest business coaching companies, and is global. And we're talking about how can we help each other to get my message out, your message out, and join them together in a way that's mutual beneficial. We help more people in more ways. Right. So that's part of the marketing. It doesn't always mean you have to go put up billboards and that kind of stuff, but you do have to do something. So glad you said that. So that being said, do a little marketing on your music.
Yeah. So I've been involved in music in some way, shape, or form since I was in the single digits. My parents made sure that my siblings and I had some type of foundational music, programming.
Your dad plays, right? He's a keyboard guy.
My dad's a keyboard guy for sure. He's a piano man, if you will, and I will. But yeah, he loves show tunes, and growing up, we would listen to Queen and ZZ Top and because we would, drive from Rhode Island to Pennsylvania to visit family members, and it's like a 5-6 hour drive. So my dad would also put on show tunes and theater and Les Mis and all that stuff.
Love it.
So yeah, like we grew up listening to a lot of different stuff. My grandfather was a jazz trumpeter, and he actually had multiple bands that would go up in the Mississippi River.
Oh, cool.
He had a show on the radio that was called Styles by Lyle. His name was Carl Wallnau, but he chose the nickname or the pseudonym Lyle for because it rhymed with style.
Oh, there you go. That's marketing. That's good.
There it is. Yeah, full circle. But growing up, I've loved music my entire life, and I started out by playing I think it was the clarinet, and it was bad, and it was just bad. And then I switched over to violin, and I was doing all right. I have a cyst in my wrist, unfortunately, and if I push right here, I'm not gonna show everybody, but it pops up. And when I went to the doctor, I was 11, 12. They said, okay, what we could do is we can go in, we could do some surgery and break it up, and we can't really remove it because of where it's located. And there is a chance that we might paralyze a finger. And I was like, oh yeah, no. So I switched from violin to something else. And then I wanted to play guitar. My parents got me an Esteban with the DVD, how to play. And I got that for Christmas one year, and I wasn't very good for some reason. My fingers just felt fat. And I learned how to play Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit on it, but it was just sloppy, which I was like, yeah, that's grunge. It was just bad playing. Anyway, I went to some friends' houses, or a friend's house, and they were doing a jam in the basement with a bunch of different guitars and a drum set. And they literally threw a bass at me, and I was like, for some reason, this feels normal. This feels like the right space.
There you go.
So ever since then, I've been playing bass. And when I first moved to Texas, or actually, that's one of my fondest memories of being up north was we made a connection to a great couple in New Jersey. Again, I was from Rhode Island at the time.
Sure.
My bandmates were in Rhode Island, and we made a great connection through my parents to, I believe it was the Rosellis in New Jersey, and they had a coffee shop / recording studio.
Wow.
And they invited us to do a little EP over there. And so we trekked over in the winter, had to push the car up an icy hill at one point. So we have our little war stories and scars from that experience, but we also we had a recording out of it. I had my stuff on a CD that I could listen to when I was a teen. So I love that feeling so much. And again, with pure music, being able to help not just pass along these fun stories, but let other kids experience that actualization of making something tangible, something that's just their imagination.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the history of me and music. With Project Tree Walker, which for those of you who are interested, treewalkerofficial.bandcamp.com. You can check out our latest releases there. We were going, my dear friend Cliff, it's mainly his brainchild, but he says he and I are more or less a third of the band, with Joe also being an equal member third. But really, it's just me and Cliff. Joe just plays the keys. But also, truly, when Joe is in the room, he is a composer. He's very skilled at what he brings to the table, which is a very specific aesthetic. He's been playing keys since he was a kid. He was influenced by the song Jukebox Hero to play guitar, and so he's also really solid on guitar too. But his parents wanted him to play keys, so he can play piano very, very well.
Wow.
And also, like I said, composer. So he writes scores digitally, and he has them, composed digitally, and they sound like full scenic moments from movies.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm just going to put it on the shelf. So he has a catalog of music that no one's heard except for select friends. And it's
amazing.
But he has a different barometer for success in music, right?
Yeah.
And somebody else who's just here's something else for you to listen to. What do you think? So with Tree Walker, this new project, we're going for something that has a little bit more commercial viability. I use air quotes around it, but a little bit more pop aesthetic, pop vibes, something that would likely get radio play. And we're hoping to actually get some shows based on the music as opposed to shows based on the relational rapport that we have with other people in the scene.
Sure.
So to my previous band that I was in with both Cliff and Joe stepped away, but Cliff and I wrote it out to the end, was Batholite. And that was a prog metal, so progressive metal, which is for some of you older cats, think of King Crimson or Yes. where that's prog music, where there's a lot of key changes, there's a lot of movement across the song. Sometimes you'll actually hear like a linear piece as opposed to the conventional pop setup where it's intro, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, outro, you know? So we were doing a lot of that for a while, and we released something like 40 some odd original tracks and some covers. And that was, for me, something that like really was the seal on the wax that was like, no, I want to be a performer in some capacity.
Awesome.
I entered into flow on stage more often than in any other activity.
Spectacular.
In part because of the challenge to skill ratio, where with prog music, especially, and the stuff that Cliff wanted to write, Cliff is a pick-me kid. He's a tryhard. I love him to pieces, but that's that. And I would say it to his face, so don't worry about it. It's not but no, he wants people to say, wow, that's complicated. He wants to do that type of stuff.
Sure.
So we were pushing ourselves musically in order to have that be the effect. But it was also like in a live setting. So there was a lot riding on it, you know, to save face.
Sure.
To also honor the other presenters, the other performers who we're playing with. And yeah, so it was terrific times, and I'm looking forward to doing that again. Batholite ended up passing away in part because of COVID, where all the bands couldn't get gigs because
nobody's moving,
and nobody was going out, and there was no money for entertainment, you know. And,
right.
Yeah, so that was just something that kind of had to prune itself out, unfortunately.
Sure.
Which I think is also imperative to know about when it comes to talking about life and mastery and purpose, is that, you know, sometimes, honestly, it's just that's the season, and the season's over, and you might need to retire that jersey. It might not be a forever retirement. You know, maybe you can do an encore.
Sure.
But yeah, sometimes that's all she wrote, and you just have to be able to, like you said, have something else kind of in the
Well, and let me just step back in here, because I think you hit on a great point there. You were trying several things, right? And then you discovered, hey, the flow is here while I'm on stage playing. Exactly, right? So, and sometimes you have to try different things. You know, my dad and I never had a conversation in our whole life, not one conversation. And he passed away when I was about 22, 23. But he wrote me a letter when I was 18, when I had gone up to college. And in that, it was his father's blessing. It was him saying all the things he always probably wanted to say, but never could say, and I wouldn't let him say probably. But in that, he was talking about try as many things as you need to till you find that one thing.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I'm like you. I feel it when I'm on the stage teaching anything. I don't care if it's the back of a cereal box. I'm feeling it, right? So that flow state is just so important, and I just really appreciate that you brought that up, because it is key. It is a key factor. So anyway, I want you to talk about your music, and we're actually going to use some of his band's music on the front and back end of this video. So you heard it already at the front. You hear it again at the end, and this is from his band. But just give a little bit more about what you guys are doing. And I know you working on some music right now. You just had one come out. I think you got a couple LPs out there. So
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Before I go into more Tree Walker, just to the point of explore the options, there's a great book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I don't know if that's his last name right, but the 3 points are: you explore your options, you explore all of the options, you eliminate the trivial many, and you execute the vital few. Exploring the options is the first step. So in order to figure out where you fit best, you might feel like, yeah, okay, I'm a rhombus. I can fit in this rhombus size hole, but it might be not a perfect fit. And even then, perfection is an unachievable standard. So done is better than perfect. But there is more than likely a better fit if you haven't quite found it yet. And if you have found it, that's awesome. Lean into it. Eliminate the other stuff until such a time as you've already gone through the hole. Maybe there's a new meshing. Maybe there's a new hole. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good.
So with Tree Walker, we did just recently have a single come out. Thank you very much. We had our EP Initium Novum, which means a new beginning, come out last year, and it features a friend of ours, Alec Reese, I think is how you say his last name. He's an awesome guy, super talented, incredibly intelligent, very funny, fun-loving guy. Unfortunately, he was going to be in the band, and it just didn't really work out with his schedule. He ended up getting, fortunately and unfortunately, bittersweet, whatever. He got promoted, and so he's making more money now, which is awesome. But he's just unavailable. He handles dispatch for emergency transport.
Oh, wow.
So he's doing the right thing,
Yeah.
but it's just like he could have been with us. And one thing that's really cool about him, that just to give him his accolades and brownie points, my dear friend Cliff has said that if he ever created a guitar chord Bible, or like a visual structure of like these are the guitar chords, he would picture Alec doing it, because his technical precision was so immaculate. Like, it was so good. So Tree Walker has already undergone a couple of like shifts internally, and we started with a showcase of just like, hey, you know what, we're friends, we're doing music again, here's kind of where we're at. And we did one track that was very much in the vein of what Batholite used to do, which is Lightning Gavel, which I think is the one that's going to start.
Yes.
And one of the reasons it's called Lightning Gavel is because Cliff felt like he had caught lightning in a bottle with that riff. And it was just one of those riffs that just like, all right, that's awesome. I got it.
It's really good. I really love it. So
thank you. It's very catchy.
It is.
Again, accolades and brownie points to Cliff for doing that.
And
he refuses to accept the praise associated with the output that he does, but he is one of the most prolific creatives I've ever met. That dude sneezes out songs. Like, he'll be 3.5 minutes. Like, it's amazing. He's so talented. And one of the reasons that he is able to punch them out is because he's already done so many. So like, he'll joke around that he's forgotten more songs than most people will ever learn. And it's like, yeah, that's true. Because he writes 2-3 songs a day, and it's not like intentionally. It's just like, all right, that's a melody, and then he like programs it quick, and he's like, all right, that's saved. Move on to the next one, and then he works on this 12-minute long prog epic, and he's like, all right, move on to the next one. Okay, and work on the good game. So again, going back to Initium Novum, it was a new beginning. This is just like us as friends trying something new. So we did something that sounded like Batholite. We did something that sounded a little bit more goth lounge. It's called Downside. It has a lot of electronic elements to it, which Batholite primarily stayed away from. We were more analog. And then we did something that Alec and Cliff literally just wrote in an afternoon. Cinema Dreams. They were like, all right, we're going to get together. Joe and Carl aren't here. Let's just kind of explore the space. Let's experiment. Okay, that sounds cool. All right, here's some lines. Okay, yeah, that sings well. All right, here's the track. So, like, again, it was meant to be kind of a showcase of, like, here's what we can do.
Yeah.
And it did pretty well. I thought it sounded pretty good. Each song sounded rather distinct. So it almost sounded like 3 singles as opposed to something cohesive, which is fine, just for starting out.
Of course.
We can play 15 minutes if you guys have it open.
Yeah.
But with this one, in part because I'm a sucker for a good narrative and a good concept album, we went with a theme. And the theme and the story and the narrative is one of mental illness and how it affects different people and the different stages and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's 9 tracks. It starts with 988, which is the hotline for people with suicidal ideation and intrusive thoughts. And also a sound clip from a PSA that came out, I want to say in the 50s, but I can't remember. I don't have all the details on that.
Sure.
And so the numbers that it cites are rather upsetting just to hear. Sure. And that's from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the numbers are way higher now.
Oh, it.
I even talked with Cliff and Joe, and I was like, I kind of want to do a voiceover of saying what the modern numbers are. And they both were like, no, it's a vibe. And I was like, all right, cool. But that's also, again, dealing with creatives. So
of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They were probably right. Fair enough in retrospect. Big enough man to say that.
Sure.
Then track 2 is Way Out, which is from the mindset of somebody who really is struggling. And they're like, maybe I could sell my car. I don't know. Maybe I could rob a bank, I guess, just to make ends meet. like I need something. I need a way out.
Sure.
And we released an acoustic track earlier this week, something like that. And it's not even on the EP, but we're just like, hey, this song is coming out and it's going to sound really cool. Here's a song that doesn't sound like it, but it's the same song, we swear. You know, like, good marketing. We're trying different things.
Exactly.
After that one, it's an interlude kind of piece that's called A Time for Introspection. And oddly enough, that 60-second track, I've got the most positive feedback from everybody. And it's literally just like a little interstitial. And it's meant to be a beat. I think it's called, I might be misusing it, but in Japanese culture, a ma moment, where it's like, okay, everything is like high octane. Here's a moment before the final fight where we're going to show the rain. And it's just kind of like, not even the calm before the storm, but it's like this in the greater context of what is. Because if you only see the stuff that's happening, or if everything is constantly coming at you, then you will actually get bored from that. So it's that moment of reprieve. And A Time for Introspection does that. Again, in the narrative where it's like, okay, how not just this one person who's struggling with trying to find a way out, but the people around them who see that. And it's like, I see that you're in pain. What can I do?
Sure.
Like, how can I help you? So we have a song it's not Meet You There. Theory of Woe. That's what it is. Theory of Woe, which is kind of like that perspective of depression doesn't just hurt the person who's depressed, it hurts the people around them.
Absolutely.
Because their heart goes out to them. They don't want to see their people like that.
Right.
So we have a piece that talks about that. We have another track that's called Money Troubles. In this economy? Yes. And then a track that I wrote called Grieving Animals. And that one went through a lot of changes, a lot of changes. And it's still a 6-minute long song. But the joke that I had with Cliff when we first recorded it, before we had lyrics and all that, was only took him a year and a half because I hadn't actually like written a song. I had been burnt out on writing music for a long time. And so the joke internally was that I cranked one out that like was decent enough and up to snuff that he's willing to play it. But no, Grieving Animals kind of talks about the grieving process of the opening line is, you can't stop the birds of sorrow from flying overhead, but you can stop them from building nests in your hair. And I love that idea of, life goes through ebbs and flows. But there is a season and a time for everything. And you don't have to plant yourself in that one season. You can be a little bit more fluid, like Bruce Lee says, be water.
Be water, yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. And then from there, the rest of the album, we have another brief little moment. It's called A Time for Healing, which is kind of after the final line in Grieving Animals is, I wish I had just stayed home. And Time for Healing is really that an introspective time where it's like, we need to recover. We were talking about the flow cycle earlier, like, I just had this terrible fight and now I need to maybe lick my wounds. Maybe I need to reconsider what got me into that position in the first place. And then the final track is Meet You There. And that was actually a fun writing exercise. Yeah. Because the chorus is, promise me you will be there. And the verses spell out, promise me, the first letter of all the words spell out, promise me you will be there. So that's really fun, especially in light of the heaviness and the gravity of I wish I had just stayed home. And then the finale on the EP is, I will meet you there. It's like, if you do not go within, then you will go without. And if you feel like you need to stay in, that might be the right thing for a time, but still there's something greater promised out there. So promise me and promise yourself that you're willing to go there.
That's awesome. Well, I love the whole thought process of, an album not just being a collection of songs, but you're actually taking somebody somewhere, right? And addressing something that is really, really vital in society today. I mean, that's why I wanted you to talk about it, because I know that when you guys are doing stuff like that, it's not just, hey, let's just make a song. No, let's put something together that actually has some significance and bring it down the line. So I really love that. So one last thing.
Yeah.
So if you were going to tell somebody, just here, what's the most important thing you think that they could do if they're looking for their purpose, they're trying to figure it out? What would be that one thing? Not that there is only one thing, because there certainly isn't. But if there's one thing that they could do, what do you think that would be? What would you tell them?
I would highly recommend finding a mentor. And as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to meet them in person. You can find mentors in books. You can find mentors behind pulpits. You can find mentors online. And you can find somebody else who can act as a Sherpa, who maybe has already gone up the mountain once or twice, who knows some of the pitfalls, who knows some of the shortcuts, who knows some of the spots that are really going to try you, or that are really going to test you. And they'll be able to provide some insight, in my opinion, invaluable insight that just will help you along the journey. So I would say if there is one thing, it's get a mentor. Another one is pack a lunch. Wherever you're going, just have a little snack, because you never know when you're going to need a little boost, a little pick me up. So having something.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right, and I guess be careful.
All right.
Yeah.
You froze up.
Oh no.
Yeah, you froze up there. So you said pack a lunch and then you froze.
Pack a lunch and then be careful also.
Yeah, be careful. I really like that, because a lot of times people get so caught up in what they're doing, they forget about the normal stuff, the everyday stuff, and that, hey, listen, patience is the number one deal. And sometimes, you know this is you have friends and they're just in the middle of something and their anxiety is grabbing you. I've had so many friends that go, you know what? Go take a nap.
Yep.
Go fishing. Go take a walk. Forget this. You can't do it. You're not getting anything done, and you can't do anything. Just go. Don't worry about it, and something's going to happen. God loves you, and you love God, and it's going to happen. Just relax. And so that's like your pack a lunch thing. You just go sit down with a bologna sandwich and enjoy yourself. Whatever.
So just have a bite.
Yeah, exactly.
Have some nosh. You're angry.
Angry, exactly. Well, that's great. And I love the mentor thing. I totally concur with that. I'm not going to add any hamburger helper to it. This is really, really good. Well, Carl, this has been awesome. I know everybody's loved it. And it's probably one of the longer podcasts, but I don't even want to edit anything because it just got so much good stuff, except for the glitches we had throughout the thing, which we'll cut out. But other than that, thank you so much for being a part. We're definitely going to have you back because I want to hear, the pure music that you talked about, and then what you talked about with your band and stuff. All those things, we know there's going to be things happening along the way. So we're definitely going to have you back and talk about those, because people need to. The reason I love doing these, people usually see the after, they don't see the journey, right? And so now we've got some good things on the journey, some good signposts. Okay, where are they going to take you? What's going to happen another 100 miles from now. So anyway, thanks again, man. This was really, really good. And thank you all for being a part of the podcast. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and hit the like, and tell somebody about this podcast. Somebody who needs to hear what Carl was talking about this whole last hour or so. It's good stuff. So thanks a lot, Carl. Bless you guys. We'll see you all in the next podcast.